"You're fired." The words cut through the diner like a blade as Sarah's hands trembled around the coffee pot. She had just served a table of leather-clad bikers their breakfast, and now her manager stood before her with cold, unforgiving eyes. What happened next would change everything. The morning sun filtered through the greasy windows of Mel's diner, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. Sarah Martinez had been wiping down tables for 3 years, her calloused hands moving with practiced efficiency. At 28, she carried herself with quiet dignity, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her uniform pressed, despite its age. The bell above the door chimed as 5 motorcycles rumbled to a stop outside. Through the window, Sarah watched as a group of bikers dismounted, their leather jackets bearing patches and symbols she didn't recognize. Other customers shifted uncomfortably, whispers rippling through the small restaurant. "I don't want those people in here," Manager Rick Thompson muttered, his voice sharp with disdain. "They'll scare away our regular customers." Sarah's heart sank. She had seen this before, the quick judgments, the assumptions based on appearance. But these weren't just any bikers. As they entered, she noticed something others missed. The careful way the eldest helped his companion, whose left sleeve hung empty. The quiet respect they showed each other, the faded military insignia on their jackets. "Sarah, don't serve them," Rick commanded, his voice low but firm. "Tell them we're full." The diner was half empty. Sarah looked at the men settling into the corner booth. The eldest, a weathered man with silver hair and kind eyes, caught her gaze and nodded politely. His companion, the one-armed veteran, struggled briefly with his jacket before his friend quietly helped him. In that moment, Sarah saw her own father, another veteran who had returned home, changed, who had faced the same cold stares and whispered judgments. She remembered the nights he sat alone, the weight of service and sacrifice heavy on his shoulders. "I can't do that," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "Excuse me." Rick's face flushed red. "I said I can't do that." This time, her voice carried the strength of conviction. "They're customers. They deserve service." Without waiting for his response, Sarah walked to the corner booth, her heart pounding but her step steady. "Good morning, gentlemen. What can I get you started with?" The silver-haired man smiled warmly. "Just coffee, for now, miss. Thank you for your kindness." As Sarah poured their coffee, she learned their names. Tom, the eldest, was a Vietnam veteran. His friend Marcus had lost his arm in Afghanistan. They were part of a motorcycle group that rode to honor fallen soldiers, visiting families and supporting veterans in need. "We understand if folks are uncomfortable," Tom said quietly. "We're used to it." Sarah's hands steadied as she filled their cups. "My father served too. He would have been honored to meet you." When she returned to the counter, Rick was waiting, his face twisted with anger. "You're fired. Clean out your locker and get out." The words hit like a physical blow, but Sarah stood tall. "I understand." As she untied her apron, the diner fell silent. Other customers watched, some with approval, others with discomfort. Sarah gathered her things, her 3 years of service ending in a moment of moral choice. Tom stood as she passed their table. "Miss, we're sorry for any trouble we caused." "You didn't cause any trouble," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "Sometimes doing what's right costs something, but it's still right." The next morning, Sarah woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. Her friend Maria was calling, excitement clear in her voice. "Sarah, you need to see the news. Turn on Channel 7. On her television screen, Sarah watched in amazement as dozens of motorcycles filled the parking lot of Mel's diner. Veterans from across 3 states had heard about what happened. Word had spread through veteran networks and social media like wildfire. Tom stood before the cameras, his voice clear and strong. "Yesterday, a young woman lost her job for treating us with dignity. Today, we're here to show that respect and honor still matter." The reporter's voice carried over images of the gathering crowd. What started as one waitress's act of kindness has become a movement. Veterans and supporters have traveled hundreds of miles to stand with Sarah Martinez. But the story was far from over. As Sarah watched, a black sedan pulled up to the diner. A woman in a business suit emerged. "Jenna Williams," owner of the city's most prestigious restaurant group. She had been watching the news, and she had a proposition. "Miss Martinezzi," Janet said when she called. "I've been looking for someone with your character. Would you consider managing one of my restaurants?" The offer was more than Sarah had ever dreamed. Triple her previous salary, full benefits, and the respect she had always deserved. Meanwhile, at Mel's diner, Rick faced a different reality. The veteran gathering had drawn attention to his discriminatory practices. Health inspectors arrived, finding violations that had been overlooked. Regular customers, disgusted by the treatment of the veterans, took their business elsewhere. Within a week, Mel's diner closed permanently. Sarah's first day at her new restaurant was marked by a special ceremony. Tom and Marcus, along with dozens of other veterans, came to celebrate her new beginning. The restaurant donated the evening's proceeds to veteran support services. "You know," Tom said as Sarah served him coffee in her new establishment, "sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest changes." Sarah smiled, looking around at the bustling restaurant filled with people from all walks of life. "My father always said that honor isn't about the uniform you wear. It's about the choices you make when no one is watching." As the evening wound down, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. One moment of moral courage had cost her a job but gained her something far more valuable. The knowledge that standing up for what is right, even when it's difficult, creates ripples that can change the world. The veterans continued their rides, carrying with them the story of a waitress who chose dignity over fear, respect over prejudice. And in restaurants across the country, servers remembered Sarah's example, treating every customer with the honor they deserved. Sometimes, the most powerful revolutions begin with a simple act of kindness, a cup of coffee served with respect, and the courage to do what's right when everything else tells you to look away. In the end, Sarah learned that true strength isn't about never falling, it's about standing up for others, even when it means you might fall yourself. And sometimes, when you stand for others, the whole world stands with you. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from in the comments below. Subscribe for more stories that honor the quiet heroes among us, the ones who choose courage over comfort and dignity over dollars. Because in a world that often rewards looking the other way, we need to celebrate those who choose to see, to serve, and to stand.